Hi, I'm Karis, and before this story starts, I want to give a bit of context. The storyteller is Venezuelan and is talking about the recent history of her country and her family's experience. Venezuela is an oil-rich country in South America which is experiencing lots of social upheaval and thousands are fleeing across the borders. It's a complex topic to explain, but I'll try to give a brief outline. In 1992, a military officer from a working-class background led an attempted coup d'etat against the government. He was called Hugo Chavez. 7 years later, after being released from jail, Chavez was elected as president with the United Socialist Party of Venezuela. He used the country's huge oil reserves to finance large-scale social spending to tackle poverty. However, under his presidency, there were many economic and infrastructural problems, and even an attempted coup. In 2013, during his second term as president, Chavez died. Shortly after, there were new elections, and the previous vice president, Nicolás Maduro, narrowly won the vote. But there were questions about the fairness of this election. In the past 5 years, there have been many protests and shortages of basic supplies such as food and medicine. The causes of these problems are disputed, but this storyteller will give her account.
And I remember in my town there was a boy from my class that he was living in the US and he came back for a week to visit his family, and he just was in one of the demonstrations in my city, which were like one of the most specific ones, and he was shot right in the head. Okay, originally from Puerto La Cruz in el estado de Anzoátegui in Venezuela. Um, it's like 6 hours from Caracas, and it's in the north part of the country. It's a city that it's by the sea, so it's quite like relaxed, and lifestyle is also relaxed in comparison to Caracas. You could access to probably everything in Venezuela. You could get education, you could get food. It was mainly okay, but there was always this sense of lack of security. Like I could never, since I was little, I could never like go to the park alone, or even with my grandparents or my mother, because it was sometimes really dangerous to go to the park.
Juro delante de Dios. Juro
So
delante
I
de
don't remember too much about it. But when I was 5 years old, Chavez came into the picture. So at first, people was really excited because he seemed like we thought that he cared about people, like all people from Venezuela, not only the people that had money. Like I think the majority of Venezuela, they thought that Chavez was like the answer, like to get like a more even country, like to even the conditions of the people in there. So a lot of people voted for Chavez. Um, at first, I think we didn't feel the changes at first because we had the oil. The oil prices were high, so we had a lot of money to spend, and there were no shortages at first. And he started to develop these social programs like Misión Vivienda or Misión Robinson. Misión Vivienda was like to build houses for people that couldn't afford it, and then Misión Robinson was like education plans. And at first, it looked like okay, it was great. La la. He started to create this socialist movement that actually spread around Latin America as we see it today. Because I think a lot of people like thought about him like a hero, like he faced imperialism and stuff like that. I think he did well in like trying to defend Venezuela like from external interest, U.S. interest, but there was a problem with Venezuela from the beginning. Is that we didn't like develop other kind of industries. Like we got stuck with the oil. We didn't quite develop like other industries like energy or anything sustainable. So at the end, it was bound to break down in a moment. But yeah, he actually didn't like manage the country well. So we started to see a lot of things going wrong. For example, we started to have shortcuts on electricity because they hadn't maintained hydroelectrical plant. So we had days without power. Sometimes we had like a week without water or gas, and that was like every month, more or less. And like it started to get worse. The oil prices started to get lower. He didn't have as much money as before, like to sustain all the things that started to go wrong. Yeah, everything started to work like awfully. Like you couldn't go. For example, when I had to renew my passport, I had to wait almost a year. I don't know. Apart from that, no, everything started to go wrong. Like we started to have like shortcuts on like really important supplies, like medical supplies. Food started to disappear somehow.
What kind of time is this happening?
I think it was 2011, more or less. We started to see like all the consequences of the mismanagement.
We are going to start off today with some breaking news from Venezuela. We just got word that Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez has died. The 58-year-old socialist leader has been battling an unspecified cancer since 2011. Questions had been surrounding the state of the socialist leader's health since he underwent surgery in Cuba in December.
So when Chavez died, then we needed elections. And at that time, in 2012, we had Enrique Capriles Radosky, which was like the opposition leader at the time. And then we have Nicolas Maduro Moros. We were hopeful that this time we could get out of this regime because it had been going on like for almost 10 years. And Maduro won for a 1%. And people was really angry. Even in the constitution, if you win by a 1%, you have to like to redo the election. But either way, since they had the control, they just took over, the position. Then we started to have Maduro. I think a few months after he took charge of the presidency, we started to feel like the shortcuts, and we had less
This
and
is
less.
like about 2012.
More or less 2012, 2013. We didn't have like, the prices started to go up a lot. For example, water was more expensive than oil. And then in 2014, we had the first demonstrations. They started okay, like people was like peacefully going to the streets and demanding new elections, or at least new measures to tackle the highest inflation ever that our country and like probably every country had ever suffered. And in 2014, coming back in 2014, the demonstrations started. And I was there in Venezuela when they started. I was actually in Caracas because I had to prepare my documentation to come to Spain. So I had to be in Caracas. And suddenly, demonstrations started to get like really violent. I think the first one, it was in February. They were peacefully demonstrating, and when the demonstration just started to, people was just going back to their homes, somebody shot, and they killed a guy.
The police.
I think, well, we think it was the police, but we don't know. Could be like some random dude with an arm. I don't know. As it's really violent, a lot of people had guns. Yeah. So, and suddenly the unrest started. It was crazy. People was afraid. That night, two of the guys that were carrying the first guy, the guy that was shot, also were found dead. People started to demonstrate because they were really angry for what had happened. It was all this pent up anger that we had for the years, and all the insecurity and all the bad feelings. I remember February was full of demonstrations, and a lot of people died. Like at least 40 people died, and most of them were young people. I think in Venezuela, normally demonstrations happen in Caracas, but
which is the capital.
Exactly. But in 2014, from 2014 onwards, they started to happen like all around the country. And I actually went to two in my city. Until the last one that I went, we were just in front of the commercial center. I was with my aunt. When we reached the commercial center, we were just there, like singing. And suddenly the police came and they started to shoot at the sky. And all people started running, and it was awful. I was really scared. I went with my aunt to my uncle's store, which was inside the commercial center, and we stayed there like for an hour more or less. And afterwards, just like 2 or 3 months afterwards, I had to leave. So I came to Spain.
And why did you leave?
After the demonstrations, I started to feel like it was really, really unsafe. Like I really started to fear for my life. Like I saw like people get thinner, and then I came to Spain. That summer, I think was in September. I stay here. I started to live here, but I started to get like the news from my mom. She started to tell me how everything had changed. That she was happy that I was not there. Like that was the major relief for her that I was not there. And then it came down to the medicines. Like we couldn't find like the most normal medicines, or it was really really expensive to get them. Like all hospitals started to have like shortcuts. Like they didn't. Sometimes they even have like power cuts, and the doctors had to do everything like manual to keep people alive, and it was awful. They didn't even have cotton. Last year, my grandpa started to get sick. They took him to the hospital, and they didn't even have like medicines. My mom had to go and buy all the medicines outside, all the ones that she could find. But even though she tried and she found most of them, like they couldn't do much for him because they didn't have the supplies. They didn't have enough people to treat him. Right now there are a lot of people starving, and there are a lot of people in the hospital. There are a lot of people dying because they didn't have what to eat. My mother told me that she had seen people looking for dogs, like stray dogs, to eat. Like that's awfully disgusting, but they can't do anything else. You're having a lot of children being abandoned in the street because people cannot take care of them. I know that if my granddad had been like here or in a place with like a normal hospital or with enough supplies, he would have survived. But I don't know. It was awful for me because I couldn't be there. And I knew a lot of things could be done differently, and he could have been better. Right now, for example, I have an aunt, like she has cancer right now, and it's really, really hard to find the medicines, like the treatment for or the chemotherapy, and it's really, really hard to find it. It's awful that to see that all these people, they cannot do anything for them because the government don't care, and they keep rejecting like all the humanitarian help that they try to send to Venezuela. They keep and keep rejecting it. I always get really sad when I see this kind of news, like people suffering, kids that haven't eaten in weeks. Like, I think I'm so lucky that I am here. Even if I had problems myself, at least I could eat. And I also try to help my family, like to send them whatever I can, like whatever extra money I can send them. I try to do it because it's really a help. Like a lot of people in Venezuela is surviving on the remesas, on the people.
Remittances.
Yeah, all the people that lives outside, they send money back to the people, to their families in Venezuela. So it's really hard. So I always get like really really angry when I see Maduro or the people from his government talking about how there is no problems in Venezuela, how everything is fault of capitalism and of the US and whatever. And I don't say those things don't affect like the overall picture, but right now our problem is that they don't want to step down of power and they don't want to do anything. So like since I came here, yeah, in 2014, yeah, that was the last time I saw my mom and the rest of my family. But yeah,
And so, what do you think is the future for Venezuela, for your family, for yourself?
I know. Mm. I don't quite know about myself or my family. I hope I can continue helping them or at least bring some of them here, or I don't know what I'm going to do. But for Venezuela, if I am being rational, I think it's going to be like really bad. Like it's going to get worse. But I really, really hope that things are start to change soon, like for the better, because people deserve it. Like it's not fair that children are dying of hunger. They cannot afford to eat more than once per day, and that if they are lucky. So I don't know. I just hope things change soon, and for the better. I don't know. Like, if you tell me about what image I have of Venezuela in the future, is like really, it's pitch black. I don't know. It's like really awful. I think the only important thing is to keep hoping.
For more stories like this, click subscribe. You've been listening to Stories for Cigarettes.